Welcome back to another edition of the Penn State 365 podcast, presented by pennstate.rivals.com. I'm your host, Richie Schnyderite, joined by my co-host, Dylan Callaghan-Croley. Dylan, breaking news today. We didn't expect it to come. Micah Shrewsberry did, unfortunately, take the job at Notre Dame, and now we're back to square one where we were 2 years ago, and Penn State's looking for another basketball coach. Let's just get your overall thoughts real quick on Shrewsberry leaving.
It's tough for Penn State, to say the least. We've heard and we've reported on Twitter as well as on the boards. Penn State did all they could, really, to keep Shrewsberry in Happy Valley. They were willing to match the money he ended up getting at Notre Dame, which I believe was about $5 million, and a 7-year contract, which for Shrewsberry, that's a hard contract to turn down anywhere. But at the end of the day, I think a couple factors didn't go Penn State's way here, one of them being location. Indiana is his home state. He spent most of his life in Indiana, most of his coaching career in that state. So going back home, obviously, is hard to turn down if you're Shrewsberry. And I think Penn State NIL situation does not help either. I know there's been work in progress there, but it's still very much work in progress. And it's still going to take a couple of years to get right for the Nittany Lions. But overall, just really tough loss for Penn State. But at the same time, it's not from a lack of trying. It's not from that they didn't care. It's simply that it is sometimes just hard to turn down going home like Shrewsberry did today. And unfortunately for Penn State, they now have to hit the reset button and go and find their next head men's basketball coach.
So obviously he's not here anymore. He's gone. I guess the first question everyone wants to know is who's going to step up next and who's going to be that guy. I know we heard one name already technically that's kind of leaning towards a front runner at this point, but these things change almost daily.
Yeah, I don't expect this coaching search to be done in a few days. I think there's really no rush in this coaching search. I'm not sure any hire really stops guys from potentially thinking about the portal. There is going to be damage that's done because of Shrewsberry moving on, no matter what. So until then, I think all you can do is what's the word I'm looking for here? Crisis management from the roster management side of things. Name one of the assistants and interim coach for now, and then just go from there. And make sure you get this hire right, because we talked about it on our last podcast. It has to be the right hire, because you cannot risk setting this program back further than it already has been because of Shrewsberry moving on.
And then, one guy to keep a name on. It sounds like, we kind of got to go with like Adam Fisher as interim, right? Because he's the only associate head coach on the team. Like, he has to get it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a name that we've also heard maybe as potential candidate for the head coaching job as well. I think it's tough because obviously he doesn't have head coaching experience yet in his career. But he is a name on the rise in the assistant coaching side of things. Is considered a rising name, somebody who's going to be a head coach very soon, whether it's at Penn State or somewhere else. I know we've heard rumors that he could actually be getting some interviews for some lower-end jobs or mid-major jobs here in the upcoming weeks ahead as well. So that will be something to watch for if Penn State is interested in him. But yeah, that he is a great recruiter. Has been a key assistant, not just at Penn State, but also at Miami, where he was before coming to Happy Valley with Shrewsberry. So that would definitely need to watch, and he does make sense as an interim head coach if Penn State does, in fact, name one.
Yeah, just to name a couple of names that he did recruit at Miami. Obviously, Lonnie Walker, NBA guy, first-round pick. Isaiah Wong, everyone knows him as the kid who kind of demanded money for NIL for Miami this offseason in order to stay at Miami, but I don't know what happened there. It seems like Miami probably paid him. But he averaged like 17 a game. And then Jameel Brown, 4-star at Penn State. He didn't really play much this year, but he was a true freshman. Give him some time. I think he'll be pretty good. And Kerry Booth. Everyone knows who Kerry Booth is. Son of Calvin Booth, 4-star, is technically signed, but I guess we don't know what's going to happen there. But if Fisher does not get this head coaching spot, it sounds like he might get a head coaching spot somewhere else. And then it's like, do these guys stay? Do they leave? And technically, they're already down to 5 scholarship players, right? Or 7 scholarship players currently. after Dalian Johnson and Caleb Dorsey just left.
And Booth is theoretically the one you can't afford to lose. And if Fisher doesn't get – now you would think because he's a Penn State legacy, there's a little bit of a higher chance he does stick around. But if Shrewsberry is gone and then his lead recruiter and Adam Fisher perhaps is gone as well, how strong is that legacy bond, I guess you could say he has with the university? Is that something that really matters to him that much?
Yeah. There you go. All right,
or is he just – we don't know how much that legacy really affects his recruitment going forward, but Fisher will be a key part of that going forward as well.
Yeah, I think obviously the name we didn't talk about, he was also the main recruiter for Logan Iams. We didn't even mention that one. One kid that we have to assume he's not going to Penn State. It's got to be Braden Shrewsberry, right?
Yeah, I would assume he's going to Notre Dame now. And Iams, I should know this off the top of my head. Iams is from Indiana?
Correct. He's from Indiana, Zionsville, and he is AAU teammates with Braden Shrewsberry.
Yeah, that doesn't bode well. You would imagine that doesn't bode well for Penn State on the Iams front either.
Yeah, so like I said before, they're already down to what did I say, 7 scholarship players, I think at this point.
And we're not sure. I'm not sure off the top of my head what Notre Dame's scholarship chart looks like right now. But you'd have to imagine with a coaching change, players are going to be leaving both programs as coaches are going to want to bring their own guys in and shuffle some of the old guys out nicely, of course.
Yeah, so right now, technically, they have 5 scholarship players on the team. They have 3 coming in Iams, Shrewsberry, and Booth, but we assume Shrews is out, so that means 7. You got 6 ships open. It's going to be interesting, and it's a hell of a job for the new head coach, no matter who, if that's Fisher or someone else. But let's go over some other names that we're kind of hearing.
Before we do that, I will say whoever gets this job, the one nice thing for them is with the transfer portal, you do have the opportunity to theoretically bring in a bunch of talent and be able to compete right away, making a rebuild somewhat faster. And now this isn't a full rebuild situation, but in the grand scheme of things, but at the same time, you have only 5 scholarship players on the roster, and you're losing multiple of your key pieces, including Jalen Pickett, Seth Lundy, who just announced for the NBA draft today. Those 2 are going to be hard to replace alone. Andrew Funk, I believe, is out of eligibility up top man as well.
Correct. Cameron Winter.
So, I mean, you're losing arguably your 4 top players right there. So, in a way, it is a rebuild at the same time, but the transfer portal does make it a little bit easier on that front.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let's go over some of the other names that we're kind of looking into right now. I know just based off a quick Twitter search, it seems like Pat Kelsey's name is starting to trend, the Charleston head coach. Yeah,
I mean, it makes sense from the fact that Penn State's athletic department, including Pat Kraft, got a little bit of a close look at him this year when they faced Charleston down in the Charleston Classic. But Kelsey's done well at Charleston, of course. He kind of picked up where Earl Grant, who's now at Boston College, picked up or left off down there. But results are results, so I definitely think that's a name worth watching.
Yeah, another name I'm just looking at, I'm just going to go off. We don't have to go too in-depth with these guys, but just go pretty quickly. Jeff Bowles, Ohio. He's got Big Ten experience at Ohio State. Kind of a lifelong Ohio guy. A lot of West Virginia ties, too.
Track record.
Yeah, I mean, 133 and 89 is a pretty good record. 1-1 in NCAA, so he's made 2. It's pretty impressive for an Ohio guy. Yeah,
I mean, whenever you get to these mid-majors, anytime you make more than one tournament or 2+ is pretty impressive. It says a lot about you as a head coach because, you know, it's not like the major conferences where you get, if you're the Big Ten, 7, 8, 9 bids a year.
Yeah, no kidding. Another guy who's got plenty of NCAA tournament experience, actually at Division I and Division III level, is Mike Rhodes, Pennsylvania native.
Yeah, he maybe not the biggest name potentially of a hire or, you know, the one that's going to blow everybody away, but a very consistent, strong head coach with Pennsylvania ties, which could help recruiting as well.
Yeah, he obviously was a pretty good recruiter at VCU as an associate head coach in 2009 to 2014. So, I mean.
And also was at Rice where he had decent success, which Rice is an incredibly hard place to coach no matter what sport.
Oh yeah, 100%. And the fact that he had a 23-win season there is kind of
Exactly.
extremely impressive. Dusty May is probably the home run higher, I would say. Assume with the
Yeah.
group, there really isn't one home run higher. This would be the
No,
closest. This would be
it's really,
a triple, I guess.
yeah, it's really, and I don't want to say that, I mean, makes a hire bad. A lot of these would be, I think all of these would be good hires.
Mm-hmm.
But there is really, I don't think, any true home run hire out there for Penn State because they're not in a position where they can go out and grab one of the top mid-major schools, just because when it comes to these top mid-major schools in basketball, they're throwing out similar money to how Power 5 football programs throw out money. So unless they're willing to go out and throw $6-7 million plus at a head coach, it's going to be hard to grab one of those mid-major head coaches or another top Power 5 coach.
Yeah, for sure. I know. Just going back to Dusty May real quick, he hasn't done a whole lot. I know he had a 19-win season last year with FAU, but other than that, 17-win, 13-win, and then this year, obviously, a 33-3 season. But I'm pretty sure they got knocked out already, right?
Yeah.
No, they were a 9 seed, I believe.
They're taking on.
Oh, they are still in it.
Yeah, they got knocked out by Alabama, didn't they?
Yes. They got knocked out by Alabama, and then.
No.
I mean,
they're facing Tennessee this week. I'm sorry.
I'm still lost with this tournament right now.
It's been a long week for all of us. We had basketball games, and then after that, it was immediately into where is Shrewsberry going to go? But yeah, they beat Memphis and then Farley Dickinson, so they now face Tennessee.
Yeah. So now another name to keep an eye on: Darian DeVries, Drake head coach. Hell of a record there. Drake's been to the tournament a couple times already. Twice technically, I think, so far. And
somebody's name who keeps popping up in those coaches on the rise post before every season. So one of these days he has to get a big job. Why not Penn State?
Yeah. Now, he did win the collegeinsider.com mid-major coach of the year 2019, 2-time MVC coach of the year. Mind you, MVC isn't the best conference in the world again, but he's pretty much dominated it because he's 122-48 over 5 seasons.
Yeah.
And so I mean,
now he's an Iowa native as well, so he's born and raised in Big Ten country. He knows what Big Ten basketball is all about. He also coached at Creighton for 17 years. So I mean, this is a guy who has spent legitimately 90% of his career 100% of his career in the Midwest, life in the Midwest, and then outside of those years in Creighton has spent his entire life in Iowa. So is coming east something he's interested in? That's, I guess, the big question. Or would he rather wait for one of the Midwest jobs to open up one of these days? Yeah. His name did pop up, I believe, a little bit with Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, he did work under 2 really good coaches, and Greg McDermott, who's at Creighton currently still. Yep. And Dana Altman, who was at Creighton's now at Oregon, who's had tremendous success with Oregon as well.
Yeah.
Only a couple more names on the list I got early on. This is just an early list, by the way. It's nothing concrete. Matt Langle, but I know there's a little bit of an interesting situation there. I don't know if you want to touch on that one.
Yeah. So I mean, nothing concrete, I guess we could say, but it is worth noting that Langle did work under Fran Dunphy at Temple, where Pat Kraft was, and of course Kraft and was the AD when Dunphy and Temple parted ways. So will that have an effect on a potential coaching search here? Will it be wanting to go to work under the AD who let go of his former mentor?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting just because he does have deep ties to Dunphy. He played for Dunphy. He coached under Dunphy at Penn. Then Dunphy took him to Temple with him, and it's like, all right, well, that is truly his mentor. Do you want to work for the guy that fired your mentor?
Exactly.
Probably not. But he was another name that was mentioned heavily with the Notre Dame job. He was like, I want to say 3rd or 4th in the list. McDermott was 1. Langle was 2. Shrewsberry was obviously one of them. But moving on to Penn State, another name to keep a close eye on would probably be Keith Ergo, who's over at Fordham, and just had a hell of a first year. Won A-10 Coach of the Year.
Yeah, A-10 Coach of the Year. Somebody who has Penn State ties, obviously. Now he has gone to he went to Fordham, where Villanova's current head coach, Cal Neptune, was the year prior, also had success. So you got to wonder a little bit there of, how much of it was Ergo. And I think Ergo is a very good coach. He's going to get a better coaching job eventually. But that's just when one coach has success right after the other, it does lead to some, questions about how much of it was them, how much it was the prior coach, the roster, etc. Will Neptune's lack of success at Villanova this year scare off Penn State here? That's something to consider. Neptune was considered a home run hire for Villanova, and he was expected to continue the Wildcats' great run. And they had a really disappointing season for those who pay attention, and for those who don't. Villanova missed the NCAA tournament this year, lost in the first round of the NIT. Real down year for the Wildcats when they had a roster that I think was well capable of making a deep NCAA tournament run as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's basically the last name I have on the list. But going back to Ergo real quick, you're right. 25-7. It's coming after Kyle Neptune's recruiting at Pro-esque there, or whatever you want to call it. He also worked under Chambers. He worked under Jay Wright at Villanova. A lot of these guys actually have connections to Jay Wright, which is pretty interesting to me, especially like Adam Fisher. I want to ask you, we just named off a bunch of names. Out of that entire list, who personally would you want them to go after, and who do you think they should go after?
Oh, that's a good. I'm going to rank the top three.
Okay.
I think May I think has the biggest upside. Mm-hmm. But of course, if you're talking big upside, that means he also could leave in 2 years again. But I think May has the biggest upside, so I think he'll be a pretty good hire. DeVries is somebody I think is going to really succeed when he gets a chance at the next level at a major conference program. So I think I would put him 2. And then 3, I think Rhodes would be a solid, safe hire, but I don't think it takes Penn State necessarily to the next level. But I think it could help keep Penn State a respectable program with tournament trips here and there. Who would you have as your top 1, 2, or if you want 3?
I do like the idea of May. I think May actually has a ton of potential. Obviously, 33 and 3 at FAU is extremely incredible. I know FAU is kind of like it's becoming almost like a quick stopping ground for coaches at this point, whether it be football or basketball. Get in there, do what you could do, and then move on to the next job. But I think it's hard to not put him 1. I do like Adam Fisher's resume a lot. I know he hasn't been a head coach, but he's been around Penn State long enough, whether it be as a assistant coach, as a video coordinator. He's worked his way up. He's recruited really well. And end of the day, I mean, the name of the game right now is recruiting. If you have a little bit of NIL, which it sounds like Penn State has a little bit, not a lot, which isn't great for their recruiting chances, but you have a little bit of NIL. You have Adam Fisher, who you still have to recruit at the end of the day. And he's a pretty good recruiter. He's spotted talent before. He's worked under Jay Wright, who I think might be one of the best coaches. Obviously he's one of the best coaches. Might be the best coach in Northeast ever, maybe. He's pretty close up there. But yeah, I mean, I think Adam Fisher's the smart hire. I don't know if I would touch most of these other guys. I know, they've had success in the Midwest and stuff like that. But Penn State's just a little different to me. Like, you have to understand State College, and Adam Fisher's been there. He's a graduate.
It's a tough place to recruit, period, no matter what the sport. It's in a tough area to get to. Fisher definitely would make sense if they miss on one of their top 2 or so guys. But I think there's a ton of potential there. You just may have to risk that the first year or 2 may be a little slower than you'd like. But I think long term it could be a really good hire.
Yeah, of course. Like, there's a reason he's getting contacted by other schools for their head coaching gigs. Like, he's obviously going to be a head coach sooner rather than later. And unless you're going to go out and be like crazy, like FDU did and hire a D2, D3 coach like Joe Crispin, Crispin, you're just saying.
I'm trying to think what would be a crazy hire, and honestly,
that would be it.
The craziest I think I could get right now is like if Penn State would for some reason choose to go after like Phil Martelli, which I mean a lot of
thought about that too.
Ties, And I'm not necessarily saying it would be a terrible hire, but at the same time, he is like 68, and his last 3 years at St. Joseph's were pretty underwhelming. But yeah, that's about the craziest I can think of for Penn State right now.
Yeah, that would be a pretty insane one. Yeah, I mean, other than Crispin, those two would probably be the craziest. How old is he now? He's 68. Jeez, that would be Beeline if you really wanted to get crazy.
Yeah,
70 if you want to go old guy. But yeah, we'll just kind of have to wait and see what happens here. It's just a matter of time, I guess. Like you said, it's probably going to take a month or a couple months, maybe. The portal is open now, so it kind of stinks because you just hosted a transfer guy, and I would assume you're probably not going to land Josh Cohen after that.
As a betting man, I would say if I had to put an over/under on this coaching search, I think 4 weeks is probably where it should be about. Like I think you definitely want a head coach. I think before you are again towards the end of the semester, which I think is probably the second or so week of May. So I think if they could have a head coach hired by April 22nd, that would be probably in their best interest. When's the portal close?
That I don't know. I think it's a 30-day period, so it should be relatively.
It opened what, March?
Or maybe no. I'm thinking football in May. The hoops portal. I'm not sure what the hoops portal is, but I guess I actually don't know it off the top of my head.
Let me see if I could find it here quickly. The deadline to enter it's a 60-day window.
Okay,
the deadline
60
would
days.
be May 11th.
Gotcha. All right, so I mean, there's plenty of time left. I mean, it's only what, and you just have to enter. You don't have to choose a school by then. You just have to enter the portal by May 11th. So plenty of time for kids to enter. Plenty of other options out there. We'll just kind of have to wait and see what happens.
And the biggest key, I think, in the meantime, will be if he is not going to be the next head coach, would be to find a way to retain Adam Fisher. And you almost have to make it a selling point to your next coach, or I wouldn't say a demand, but almost a demand that Adam Fisher has to be on that next staff, because Adam Fisher may be what kind of holds the glue together until the next coach is hired. If you want to go out and keep some of these names on the roster, but also I'm sure they'll still try to be hosting some names in the transfer portal between now and then. And because you can't just stop recruiting and trying to better your roster. It makes it tougher, obviously, but I'm sure Adam Fisher's a smart guy if he is going to be the interim per se, and he'll figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. I guess that's really all we have. Dylan, any final thoughts before we sign off here?
No, I think we really covered pretty much all of it at this point. There's really not much to go off right now. I mean, this is news that's under 2 hours old at this point. I think if you're a Penn State fan right now, all you can do is take some deep breaths. It sucks that Penn State did lose Shrewsberry, but this Pat Kraft has been a very good AD for Penn State so far, and so you gotta have to put your faith in him that he's going to make a good hire here and not rush into a bad one. And finally, I think it's worth knowing that this is Penn State's not in this situation because they didn't try, because they didn't care about basketball. They tried pretty damn hard to keep Shrewsberry around. But like we said, it's just sometimes too hard to beat out the quote-unquote hometown team here, which Shrewsberry, lifelong Indiana native, coached in South Bend before at the D2 level. It's not a surprise that he's headed home.
Yeah, so all right. I guess that's all for now, guys. Stay tuned for another Penn State 365 podcast on your podcasting apps. Give us a 5-star review. Hit the subscribe button down below. For me and Dylan, check you out soon, and stay tuned for another pod soon.